Hey everyone, can't believe we're on episode 6 already. Today's guest is Craig Buckley, owner of the Fish Bar in Crewe and regional director of National Federation of Fish Friers. We cover a wide range of topics, but it was really good to learn about his journey into the fish and chip industry. Craig's a really smart guy, really opinionated, but just more than anything, he's just really honest. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you. Craig, thanks for your time today.
No worries.
And I know how busy you are. So, this was pretty short notice on you as well, wasn't it?
A little bit, but it worked well for both of us, so that's good.
So, I wanted to know, what did you do before fish and chips?
Okay, so basically I grew up here in Crewe, in Wiston, and I started sort of my employment journey working for a local country pub/restaurant. I'd say more like a gastro pub, where they focused heavily on the food side of sales, but also the quality as well. So I started working there when I was 13, 14, washing up. One of the waitresses there used to work for my mum occasionally, and she sort of got me in that they'd got this vacancy, and started pot washing for probably a good 18 months, but I absolutely loved it. The team, the sort of environment of being in the kitchen, and also that's definitely where my passion for food started, because they used to talk and introduce different recipes. I used to watch the chefs sort of cooking and preparing things and everything like that. So that's definitely where my sort of food side of things started. And then through working there, so like I say, 13, 14, I used to go there, I think a couple of nights in the week after school, and then mainly sort of 1.5 or 1 day at the weekend as well. And then obviously my mum and dad were still conscious that they didn't want me to totally neglect school and things like that, which was good. But I started on the sweets and the starter sections, and really loved that, and excelled as well. I think hopefully the people that I used to work for would look back and say that I did a good job for them, and I was quick and consistent, and all the things that we have to think about now in fish and chips really. But so I started doing that, sweets and starters, loved it. Passion grew. I was probably 14, 15 easily by this point, and then I started actually cooking on the mains in the section. So definitely while I was still in school, I was sort of chefing properly really. So 15, 16, obviously not the major tasks, but one of the chefs and one of the team. And then that just sort of grew really. So I worked there whilst I was at college again. And, because I grew up there, it was almost like a second home really, and a family, and the people that run it, they were brilliant. I've got nothing but respect for them, and they worked really hard. Up until they retired, even now I think during retirement that they can't help but get involved in work and things like that. But yeah, they had a real passion for the quality, and they used to emphasise that. And the place had a really good reputation for food, and I enjoyed being a part of the team there. So I did that through college. And then at college, I did the usual A-levels. I got really good GCSEs and really good A-levels, but I'd always earned money by this point, and I was actually, I suppose in them days quite wealthy for my age, if that makes sense. I'd always earned 150 quid a week or whatever it was, or and that then was like, you were a millionaire. So the thought of going to university just never appealed one bit. I think people that know me from a young age, I'd probably do something on my own business, something like that. What I had no idea, but I knew I'd do something like that rather than say a doctor route or something that going to university would benefit. So I never applied. All my friends did, and I was like the odd one out that didn't. Never applied, never went to university, and instead actually, this is a true story, I thought, well, what am I going to do? It was weirdly around the time that the Sunday Times Rich List come out. And I opened that up and had a look and analysed what markets and what things people were doing. And I think it was 65% of the world's wealthiest population had a big share or had made a lot of money in property. So I just thought, right, if 65% of the world's richest people can do it, so can I, and that's what I'm going to get into. And locally, I applied and basically very sort of arrogantly, really, looking back, went into several estate agents and pretty much told one of them that they would give me a job, and they did. So I actually got 2 job offers. Amazing, very lucky. And I started working for a firm because that was a bit of, again, my mum and dad growing up locally. My mum knew the guy that run the estate agent, so he said, yeah, no worries, I'll take you on. So when I left college, I had that straight away to start with, and I, again, absolutely loved it. I still stayed working at the restaurant. So that I'm, what age do you leave college nowadays? I think 20, 17, 18.
No, college.
College, yeah.
So
18.
18-ish.
Yeah, so I started working there 18. And yeah, it was brilliant. I loved it. Got a company car and stuff like that, which then was like amazing. Insurance wasn't as high as it is now, but it was still a lot. Not. So someone else to pay for it was amazing. But yeah, loved the job. And again, the owner of that really took me under his wing. Hopefully saw potential in me, and he showed me a lot more than just the job. So I used to sit down with him, used to go through accounts, he used to go through sales targets for other people who worked there, and lots of more the sort of business side of that industry. But I used to love the usual stuff of going and showing people around houses, and I got really involved in like the construction side of it, enjoyed that, people doing up houses, to the point where on my days off I actually started labouring for 40 quid a day, with a local building firm. A mate again worked for them. So I mean, to be fair, looking back, I worked a lot. I had a full-time job. I worked in the evenings a couple of nights a week. Although I was tailing this off slightly, I still worked at the restaurant, and then I was labouring as well. But that again was brilliant. It's hard graft. So I sort of got to know everything about sort of property, from the sort of selling side of it and the jazzy side and the glossy to the bricks and mortar side. And yeah, I think that was sort of my main elements of before I got into fish and chips, really.
And how many years would you have been in the housing market?
So I was at the estate agent for 3 years, and then I actually went to managing this company selling businesses for about 14 months before the chip shop come up. So for that opportunity, so that 14 months, to be fair, I managed people at the restaurant to an extent, waitresses, waiting on staff. I was no by means the head chef or anything, but I would run shifts or things like that, and because I'd worked there so long, I knew how that business worked, and I got a bit of, I suppose, managerial experience from that. I also, within the estate agents, got promoted up and a few times. So again, I was almost fairly senior at like 19, 20. But the manageress at the time and the owner were both brilliant and still are. So I knew that I'd had to look for another challenge if I was going to keep moving on. Because I was never going to replace her job. And until she left very recently, I believe, for having children, she still was good and still one of the best around, so credit to her. But yeah, so I went into manage a company selling businesses. Obviously, during that time, I valued and sold a few chip shops, but also the link comes in where the restaurant that I used to work for, they, along with their son, helped out, and they end up getting a fish and chip shop, and that's the career that they'd done before the restaurant. So I think that was very much what they know. Again, they did a really nice shop, and he's still got a really nice shop now and does a great job fairly locally running a successful fish and chip shop. And I helped him out a few times and thought that, this is something I could do, and sort of saw, again, the business side of that, and obviously valuing and selling it, saw another edge to it. So I think all these things, really, all these paths, bizarrely led me to fish and chips, albeit not the traditional way.
No, of course not.
My parents or my family involved in it, they didn't know anything about fish and chips. So yeah, that was what sort of got me. And then basically when I was valuing and selling businesses, not one of mine actually, or not one that I'd even been to, but a shop locally sort of with a very bad reputation came up for sale, and I decided to go for it. But yeah, that was what had brought me. So a very varied sort of career to that point. But
and that was in 2009, was it?
Yeah, about 2009, yeah.
But tell us a little bit about how that came about. So as in, then you found the opportunity and then you took it. What, you weren't unfazed about taking on a shop that probably didn't have the great reputation? Or?
I think partly just being young and naive to it. Probably didn't know what I was letting myself in for, so I didn't really have anything to worry about, if that makes sense.
But did anybody try to pull you to one side and say...
No, they just obviously said, look, you're going to leave a lot of things that you've built up to this point. You need to give it your all. I think my mum and dad have always been really supportive of everything that I've wanted to do and try and encourage where possible, and the network of people around me. again, have been amazing. The people that I used to work for, Ken and Maria Chapman, they were fantastic, and again, tried to give me bits of advice. Nick, again, their son, tried to help where possible, and yeah, just thoroughly helpful, really.
You're pretty optimistic about your uphill project.
Yeah, I think generally I'm a sort of half glass half full kind of person, and there's look, if I give it a go and it doesn't work,
you would have found yourself in something else.
What's going to happen?
Yeah. Well, you seem like the type of guy that would have just gone back and done something else.
Yeah, I think I would. I think even then I knew that I don't like the word entrepreneurial. I just think it's a bit embarrassing. But I knew, by this point I'd already I'd done up a house and split it into 2 houses, and done that with my old boss at the estate agents. So I'd got like project management experience. So everything I'd always sort of applied myself at, I'd done all right, and I knew that I had a general decent skill set of being quite a sort of varied character that I can put myself to different elements. So yeah, I think I didn't worry about it too much. I was more excited by the prospect of it. It was going to be mine, and it was good because up until that point I'd worked for other people, and I knew that I was good at my jobs previously, and that I'd earned them good money, and I could see that as well, which almost pushed me on more. That I was impressed by what they'd achieved and things that come with that, and good and bad. But yeah, it just excited me.
So what was the hardest thing about running that shop in the early days?
Good question. I think not knowing my trade that well. So I learnt very quickly. I think also in the very beginning, the first 6 months, I had good and bad feedback, and I think that was one of the hard things was sort of taking bad feedback. And I nearly crying a couple of times if someone had said like they had a cold portion of chips or something. It was like the world has ended. And I was very, very passionate about what I was doing. So if anybody criticised that, I couldn't take it, if that makes sense, or couldn't
Took it very personal.
Yeah, I didn't try and channel it in the right ways. The other thing was staff, which still is, I suppose, a general industry issue, and I'm sure we'll come on to that at some point, but the staff element was challenging. I think the other thing was budget. I think quickly I saw the shops and saw the standards that I wanted to get to. I always want to be the best. I always want to try and do the best I can. And when I was that age, unfortunately, my mum and dad couldn't hand me hundreds of thousands of pounds to renovate a shop or whatever. They unfortunately, they encouraged me and helped me out no end, but financially they couldn't, and that's fine. So I had to sort of do things the hard way, I suppose, and I wanted to push that shop on, but it was a very small, very run down, very poorly kept shop. So the basic stuff I quickly changed. So the branding, the cleanliness, the sort of practices, I changed them very quickly, and some of them weren't probably right, but I did introduce different things. But yeah, I think generally it's just being a younger person in quite a mature world of a business. I was 21, and I look back now and think, God, I was quite immature, really. You think you're not at the time, but there's so much to learn. And weirdly, for example, little things we'll come on to, but I never went on a training course. I wish I had done. I'd have saved so many mistakes, and probably profitability as well. I'd have made a lot more money back then if I'd have known what I know now. Do
you think being a bit naive, do you think it bordered on cocky a little bit, or were you never like that?
I think some people definitely would have taken me and still might do as cocky. I don't think I'm cocky. I just think I'm sure of who I am and what I want to be. And confident. And I hope people don't see me as cocky around it. But I know that
what I mean more so by that is that we're so cocksure about what we want to do.
Yeah.
And someone might tell us actually you're wrong, and you're like, no, I'm sticking to this. Yeah, that's definitely what I mean more so by cocky.
Sorry, I understand.
That's right.
And headstrong.
Yeah, headstrong. That's it.
No, definitely. And I think it's probably only the last couple of years that I've even started to change that attitude, where you think actually it's good to learn off other people, and it's good to sort of listen, and it harks back to the days when you could hear your teacher saying you've got 2 of these and 1 of these. I was always a chatter at school, and obviously trying to implement the fact that you've got to listen more. I suppose I only realised later in life, or to the point where I'm now at 32, but I'm glad I have, and equally I don't regret anything. I'm not that sort of person. I'll learn from things, but running a business, it was a challenge, and I suppose like you're saying, headstrong, I thought that was the way I'm going to do it, and that was right. Whereas, and generally, I wasn't a million miles off the mark. Not knocking myself too much.
A bit of fine tuning,
but definitely that.
So within 2 years, you'd won dry white young fish fryer.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you entered?
The first time I entered, yeah.
It's quite rare, isn't it?
Yeah, I think up until recently, obviously the first year it happened because it was the first year of the competition.
Yeah.
And I think recently Pete Calvert has achieved the same thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm not aware anyone else done it, but no, it's good, and that's a nice little quirk. But
so you clearly learnt a lot within 2 years to impress the judges.
To be honest, I didn't know about the competition for the first year. I didn't really know about the industry or the size of it, the scale of it, the amount of people, the amount of knowledge that you can zap. I was just very focused on this little fish and chip shop. Yeah. This is my world. And then actually I thought I need to get a bit of help. I need to tweak this. And that's when I started to grow. And I just got one of the trade magazines. I think it was the Fish Friers Review one day, and saw about the competition. And I don't even remember the process. I just thought, what have I got to lose? So I just entered the first round, and then I got sent, and I think we'll come on to that in a minute, but through the questions, and I was thinking, wow, I've got a lot to learn here because I don't know half the answers.
So what was some of the stuff that you had to jump onto?
Immediately I remember, for example, one of the questions was, what was the level of sugar that should be in a potato?
Okay.
And I was thinking, I didn't even know there was sugar in a potato. It was like, wow, this. But again, I wanted to impress and do well. So it was what I do like about that round is you get a month, I think it is, to hand it back in, or a few weeks, and I think that's good because it's bad if somebody goes off and asks someone that knows the answers and they just fill it in because they don't learn anything. But in my experience, I really learnt through that competition, and this was one of the big stages where I didn't know anything about that. So I spoke to my potato supplier, and then he gave me a little bit of information, but you could see that I wanted more. Put me in touch with a potato supplier, a farmer, and then that process I learnt so much immediately, like so quickly, that I obviously answered the questions, and actually have been told since that I think I was like 20th out of however many had entered that year at that stage. My answers weren't 100% right. I'd obviously got most of them, but not all of them correct. And again, it was more fine tuning. I loosely understood what I was talking about, but not the nitty gritty and understanding it. Yeah. So it was that sort of question that I was getting of that stage, but immediately that improved my business because all of a sudden I was thinking, that's why those chips were going brown a few weeks ago, and I sort of understood it a little bit more. So that
makes complete sense. So you'd recommend that others should enter?
Oh, without a doubt. I cannot be a bigger advocate. I would not be sat in front of you now without that competition. Is the top and bottom of it. The people that helped me along that way, I'll forever be grateful to and indebted. It's massively helped shape me who I am. And certainly as a fish fryer, I'd be nowhere without that competition. Thankfully, I obviously impressed enough, got through, and then once I got through that first round, I thought, right, I better start taking this a bit seriously. I've got through. I want to win it. I'm a competitive person. I'm not in this to just finish in the final. I want to win. So what do I need to do to win? I need more experience. I need more help. So that's what I went off and did, and threw myself more at the industry. Then got involved, went on training courses, attended open days, went to trade shows, spoke to people, looked online. Chippy Chat, for example, all this sort of stuff helped get me to the eventual point where I ended up winning. So
And so do you think winning that sort of sealed the fate of that shop? Do you think you could do better after that?
No, definitely. No, I think it helped that shop, to be honest, because I built it up. I think the previous owners, I think they had a very lax business attitude towards it, whereby they'd advertise they were open till 7:30. They lived about 45 minutes away, and if it went quiet at 7, they just shut. And I realised from feedback from customers that's not the way you run things. If you're 7:30, you're walking at 29 minutes past 7, you can have a fish. You might have to wait for it, but you can have it, and that's how I've taken to this day. Things like that. But no, actually, it helped. I think at that point I was nearly doubled the shop in terms of turnover. Once I won, I easily trebled what it was originally doing under the previous owners. So then obviously I started earning a good living from it as well. It was a shop with lower overheads in the grand scheme of things. I earned and could start saving up. And then obviously it sealed the fate in terms of I wanted more. So I started looking for other shops, other premises.
So it was never, your intention was never to get rid of that shop then. It was just to open more.
So when I got that shop, the deal I'd made with the landlord at the time, was obviously he had it for sale for freehold and for leasehold. I couldn't afford the freehold, top and bottom of it.
Yeah.
But we'd done a deal on an amount of money that if I got to the position to be able to buy it for that figure within 3 years, I think it was, that he would sell it to me.
Okay.
So I got to the point where I could buy that after 3 years, or raise a mortgage to buy it and stuff.
Yeah.
I wish I could have just bought it, but no, raise the mortgage or finance and actually physically buy the freehold. And obviously I'd understood from my previous roles how important having a freehold was and the opportunities that give you and whatever else. He then unfortunately started moving away from that, backing away from that. Also, it's when the credit crunch. So actually, I think what he originally paid for the building, he'd lost quite a significant amount of money on.
Okay.
So I think that was part of it too. But basically, he backed away from that deal. And then that's when I thought, this isn't the shop I'm going to spend the rest of my career working in. So why do I want to rent it? I'd done up all the premises as well, so I'd spent so much on the kitchens, and also was a flat above where I lived for a period of time. I renovated all that, spent thousands of pounds on it, and it was basically brand new. So yeah, I was almost frustrated then that I think I've done all the hard work here, you've backed away from this, so this is something I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
The front of the shop was tidy, but the range needed work, things like that. So I was at the point where that shop needed. I'd seen my new shop at this point, and I was open. I was open by this point, but that shop had got to the point where it needed significant reinvestment in terms of a range and probably retiling, things like that. Just a general sort of mini refurb. So that would then tie me in for a period of 5 years, 10 years, and
of course.
And I just thought I'd open this brand new shop that was doing well. So it was the right time to sell. Someone came along and actually offered me a decent price for it without it going on the market. And I just thought, I've done well here. It's been brilliant. It has been a bit like a baby to me sort of thing. But things, things do move on.
You weren't sentimental at all, though?
No, not at all. No, not to... I think you are, to an extent. It's my first shop, and I'll always look at it as a sort of big pivotal moment.
It was just step up.
Yes, without that shop, I wouldn't have learnt what I'd done and whatever else. But no, ultimately, it's work, it's business, and someone made a good offer, so I'd be stupid to turn that down. And yes, that's what I did.
So tell us a little bit about how Shop 2 came around.
So Shop 2 come from, like you say, a little bit about the being involved in the Young Fish Fryer competition and winning it. Meant it opened a lot of doors for me. I got involved with the National Federation of Fish Friers. I got to meet lots of people at the more elite end of fish and chips and saw their shops and was jealous of their shops and thought I should be having a shop like this. So that shop, the initial one, the first one, was just never going to be that shop, even with a refurb. So that's why I started looking elsewhere, basically. And an opportunity come up where the new shop was on a brand new building. It was basically concrete floors, brick walls, next to a co-op. I think 20 car parking spaces, something like that. A cash machine. I just thought that is a sort of trend of, I think, where a good fish and chip shop should be heading towards, not a side street with limited parking. So that was one of the big issues with my first shop, was the limited parking. So yeah, that's how that shop come about, basically. I think there was quite a lot of interest in it, and I just had to put a package together that I thought was going to work. It was almost like sealed bids, really.
Do you think a lot of interest for the same thing, same project?
I think 2 or 3. We're looking at it for a fish and chip shop, and I think other things. I think Subway were interested in it, and some others. But yeah, I somehow managed to. I was in a good position where I was ready to go, and I'd done my homework. And I think some of the others were a bit behind on that. So I think it helped that the landlords, they were up for, they're ready to go.
I suppose they just wanted the safest option, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, because I think if they'd waited longer, a safer option might
would
have been Subway,
potentially.
I think they would have been able to charge them more and stuff. But I think because I was ready, they just said, yeah, great. So that was that, basically. I went for that shop. And I
think there are some landlords that recognise that a fish and chip shop would be a tenant for life.
Yeah.
I think that's why, isn't it? So they realise that. A Subway, I don't think, would always be, I don't know.
No, it was more, you might be right, more of a trend element. I think there's just come a lot of bureaucracy with the Subway, and there was a lot more to it. And I think, like that, because I was ready, this was my package, this is what I was offering, I'm ready to go. They said yeah to doing it. So we took a long lease on that. And the exciting thing for that shop was that it was a blank canvas for me, so I could put whatever ideas I wanted into it, design it how I wanted, put that fridge particularly there because it worked really well from sort of an ergonomic sort of flow sort of.
You've probably heard this before, but one thing that probably impressed me the most about that shop, although I've never been, I've heard from others and I've seen the photos, is that the glass room potato room.
Yeah.
I think, and you probably were the first to do that, I'm guessing.
I think it was.
Yeah.
I don't know to this day.
I know a couple that do it now, but
yeah,
and
I think slightly copied, but I won't take offence. But listen, if there's a good idea, I equally will copy.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's nothing wrong with that. But no, what it was is it used to annoy me that people would almost frown upon a portion of chips, that it was a certain price. There's not much. They think you open a bag that it just drops out into the fryer, and actually, there's so much harder work goes into that, as we know. But people listening to this might not know if they're not fish and chip shop owners. But yeah, it just used to frustrate me that was the case. So I wanted to show that off, and I thought the best way of doing it. Obviously, it needs to be in a wet room. The shop would get messy. The fryer, water, all the rest of it shouldn't mix. So it needs to be a room. So if I just put a huge window in it, make it a viewing room, almost like a bit of a museum piece, almost, but that's actually operational. It will show people we do things properly in their eyes, but also it'll add value to what we do. So if that portion of chip goes up 10p, well, actually they can see there's a lot of hard work goes into that. They can see they've got to peel them all, they check them all, they obviously prep them all, chip them all the process of that. So yeah, that was a really good addition, and if space providing, and if still it works out for the best, if I was to open any more shops, which is in the future plans, that I would try and incorporate a feature similar again, because it's kids, just general customers love it. I've had so many sort of older people actually that have stopped and God, that brings me back. I used to work in a chip shop back in the day, and it almost brings them back to that. So I think it adds value to my shop. And
do you think we've, as an industry, or even all of the industry, food industry, do you think too much is being hidden? I was at a restaurant yesterday and the grills were there to see. You could see everything being cooked. And
I think a few years ago, I think actually that's changed now. I think restaurateurs,
kitchens are coming into the restaurant
without a doubt, and I think almost that goes hand in hand with the chefs or the people that are almost a star attraction. So why box them off in a room that you can't see them? So obviously they've opened it out so people can see them and see their staff, and I totally get it. And like you say, I had nothing to be ashamed of. We do things properly. Everything's clean. Everything's spotless.
And if anything, it makes your staff want to be cleaner because people are watching.
True. Definitely, they've got to be conscious about how they conduct themselves. But I think, to be honest, I'm very lucky that generally they're aware of that anyway, and that they all, and I think that's probably just down to the training and the standards that I set as a shop, that they're like that, and the people that I employ. But definitely, it's been a good thing having that room, and I've had nothing but positive feedback from it. And like you say, it's sort of an innovative thing to do, which again is what I would try to do.
Yeah, I've noticed some fish and chip shops lately as well. They don't have any closed areas. Everything's out open, and not just the potato room, but the fish cutting area and everything. It's just there, and there's nothing to hide.
Exactly, there isn't nothing to be ashamed about.
Why shouldn't customers see you cutting fish or dealing with raw potatoes?
Exactly, and ultimately, if they can see that you're handling and see how much process goes in, it adds more value, which I think is so important that fish and chip shops try and do that.
Yeah, I think if it's hidden, I think there is the element that people may think it just comes in a box and it's ready to go. So,
exactly. But some shops do.
Oh, I'm sure they do, of course.
Yeah, no, I think from a shop like myself where I do cut all the fish and we do prepare the potatoes the more traditional method, it's good to show what you do, basically. No matter what it is, I think you shouldn't hide anything. And I think that's one of the biggest changes in the food sector industry as a whole, but also massively for fish and chips, is that it's had to become more professional. Yeah. So everything we do has to be, fully transparent from the customer's point of view. So obviously down to... I
think fish and chip industry needs to be more ahead of the game than others, because there is that misconception. So we do have to work harder to battle that, if that makes sense. But I think that there's still others that are behind us, but they've got a bigger skill set. So if we look at Chinese food or Indian food, I don't think they look as good as ours, but because they've got that skill set, it almost looks like they're doing something great, if that makes sense. But
no, I agree.
Every Chinese kitchen is hidden behind a door, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think I've been to a Chinese takeaway where you see everything open.
No. No, I agree.
Yeah. So, and in 2015, how do you say this? You went to Australia. You tell me the town, but yeah.
Coogee it's called.
Coogee, okay.
It's in Sydney.
Okay.
So it's just like a borough within Sydney.
Right.
Obviously we've skipped on slightly there, but the new shop and obviously the award got me involved in the federation, got me involved in the industry, got my sort of face and sort of me known as a Frier, I suppose, and people in magazines. And long story short, contrary to what people think, it was nothing to do with the federation as such, so it wasn't a federation project or anything. I got approached by a couple who I then got onto the federation training courses and stuff, because that was what I thought was the best practice for them to do, to learn. But I got approached by a couple to help them set up a fish and chip shop in Sydney. And obviously at this point, how old am I? 26, 27 or something. And that's super exciting, go off over to Australia, help set up. I'd helped a few people in this country, almost like a consultancy type thing, setting up and advising on layouts and this, that, and the other products to use, etc. So it was just a natural thing to jump at the chance, really. They seemed a really nice. It was a lady in about sort of late 40s, early 50s, and a lad is a few years older than me. He's about 35, 36 now, and they're both Irish. They both lived in Sydney. They met in a pub one day. They discussed that they missed what they call a chipper, which is because they're from Ireland. And they missed that, and they wanted to open one, but realised that they both had different skill sets, but realised they needed help with that. So that's where they started looking to the UK to get that help, and obviously stumbled across myself. So I think, as well as other people, I think they spoke to a few people in the industry, but I think I luckily got the job because I helped them out for nothing to start with. And I think some of the people had tried to quote them, little consult, and it was all very corporate immediately. I just pointed them in the right direction a few times, just as I would, trying to help someone out. And then they sort of liked me or whatever, and then, approached me to help out. So that was great.
And what did you learn about how different fish and chips is over there?
A lot. Firstly, it's the other side of the world, so the time zones and things like that. It's the challenge of that is definitely apparent to this day still. But I learned that obviously the supply of products is something that you've got to really take into consideration. In fact, I learned a lot more about putting systems in place in shops, because I had to fully put a system in place for these guys. So it actually helped my shop too, because it sort of got me evaluating. I'm mainly frying 4 or 5 days a week in my shop, so when you're there, you just naturally do it. Obviously, when you've got to step away from something, you've got to put that system in place. So it was good like that. I think what I learned is that there is lots of fish and chip shops in Australia already. There's a couple of them that were trying to be British, but a lot of them, they do like a grilled fish with some frozen chips, and that was their idea of fish and chips. And the community in Coogee is very much expat, so they wanted to pitch this at expat, done properly, British, etc. So that was the route they went down, obviously getting me involved, and it was just an amazing experience to.
It is a lot of frozen chips over there, isn't it? I think New Zealand's the same, isn't it? Yeah.
I think the climate dictates a bit of that as well, because obviously it's so warm that threw up its own challenges with us. I've never seen such a walk-in fridge in a fish and chip shop, but it was needed because everything had to be kept chilled. Chips, fat, everything, nothing, everything would melt. So fish, obviously, you had it out. Frozen at sea was out 2 hours and it was ready to be cut. It was so warm. It is seasonal, but generally it's a lot hotter.
Did you manage to eat any barramundi?
I did try it. It was it was all right, to be fair.
I quite like that fish.
It was all right. But that was the thing, and we had to decide, if we were going to be authentic British, we had to use cod. We had, all these elements, which we could get, but again, it's just a challenge of supply. And also, where it is very much a young hip, so that was great, but the staff that we were pitching at was very much a transient staff, so they'd come over and basically they'd be travelling. So there'd be 1 or 2 core people that live there, but generally that area is people live there for a year and then they move on or whatever. So you'd have them for a season, but they'd go. And I'm sure I have no experience of running a seasonal shop in the UK, but I would imagine that has similar challenges like that.
So would you do something like that again?
Yes. Probably closer to home, because that's my frustrating part of it, that it is the other side of the world, and the time zones and things like that. It does make it very difficult.
Could you ever see yourself up in sticks and leaving the UK and doing fish and chips in another country?
Oh, it's so tempting because I mean, myself and Tori, my partner, he said, I went over there for 3 weeks to Australia, and she joined us for the last sort of 9 or 10 days, and we said, what the shop was doing was good money, and not run right. So imagine we went and did something and run it properly.
Yeah.
What you could do, and obviously
and nicer weather.
Yeah, exactly. So very tempting, but to be honest, I'm too much of a friends and family kind of guy.
Yeah.
I would miss home, and I'm not ashamed to say that.
No, I feel
it's
like
an amazing experience, but no, I can't see myself ever work-wise moving abroad. A holiday home would be lovely, but I think actually up sticks, it's not for me, I don't think.
No.
But who knows?
No, who does know? And obviously today you now run the shop number 2. You got rid of number 1.
Yeah.
Which is now. Yep.
Yeah.
And you've got a mobile unit as well.
I have.
And but it's not like you don't do rounds, you don't do anything like that. It's more events.
It's just events. And I think that was a conscious decision I made when looking at the mobile fish and chip sector. It was something a couple of years ago I thought seemingly was coming a bit more fashionable. But for me, it was just a natural thing because at the shop we were getting asked to cut people's like delivery orders for like parties and things. So we were doing that, but which is great, and you can't turn down 100 fish and chips or whatever a delivery. It's a fantastic order, but they wanted that at 8:30 on a Friday night when the shop's busy. So the logistics of that were challenging. So it used to frustrate me to an extent.
Yeah.
And obviously I was worried about the customers in the shop. I don't want them not to come back in.
No, of course.
But with a 10-15 minute extra wait, I could see why they might go somewhere else. So, yeah, I think it's just a natural thing like that I thought this would be good. Again, because I'd just opened this and that and whatever else we'd bought new houses and stuff, that budget wasn't ridiculously high that I could just walk out and buy a brand new one. I think I was looking around 70,000-80,000 for a really good brand new unit with a good frying range and stuff like that. So I looked at sort of a more reconditioned route and different option, and that's what I chose, and I'm really happy with that.
A few years ago, our industry, not like it's right because it's not, but they would look down on mobile vans. Because they were always seen as a way to get started more so.
Well, and to an extent now, I still see it. So we're picking up the pieces a lot of time from rogue operators. I describe.
So is that why it's still got that? That's where the connotation comes from. It's from that.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I think the reason that is because these people doing it like that often still have another day job. It's like a hobby or an extra bit of weekends that we do this, but they use little drop down basket fryers and things like that, which we both know won't produce you a good, consistent product, etc., etc. So for me, it was very important for it to be like my shop. So everything inside is kitted out like the shop, all the operational side of it. The frying range, is a proper fish and chip frying range. A Mallison's one, converted to LPG, and it's a great bit of kit actually. And it's. That was very important for me. I didn't want anything to be different from the shop. The reason why we're getting asked to do these deliveries is because we do a nice product in the shop. So
it's shop quality, just on the road.
On the road, exactly. And that was so important. And actually to do that as a round, I felt would be challenging because how much stock do you load?
True, very true. Yeah.
How much you're going to sell? You don't know. You pitch up to an event. It's still very much a guesswork. I do one festival, but I've done that now for since I've started 3 years. I thought, what have I got to lose? I'll give it a go. I learned so much in the first year. Now I know pretty much how much I'm going to sell, or whatever else. So I could explore that more, that side of it. But speaking to people that do events and festivals regularly, for them, it's almost hit and miss. So some festivals they'll lose, some they'll gain, and over the year they'll gain, hopefully, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do.
Do you ever do any food festivals, anything like that?
Yeah, so again, we've been invited. This festival I do it is a family festival, but it's run by a company called Wild Rumpus, and they have a lot of links and connections with the Royal Arts Council.
Okay.
So it's very much focusing on quality, things like that, which is what got us attracted to it in the first place, to be honest. It's very family orientated, which again I think is important. And the other thing is that people camp there, because I didn't want to do an event where they still can turn up at the day to a limited number for this, but generally people are camping, and if it was all ticketed, obviously if it rains you could all of a sudden
have nothing to do.
I won't get my £2,000 pitch fee back, so it was important that people were there to stay and needed to eat, so that was another business factor of it.
I've seen sort of two sides to the whole street food scene,
and
one side is that it's very heavily branded, lots of ethos, everyone really doing the right thing. And then there's another side of me that just sees like, wow, like
fully agree.
Yeah, like I went to Simpsons, the Cheltenham Food Festival.
Yeah,
and there's some really great food businesses there.
And there's also some.
And there's also some ones, and you just see they're just getting, you know, a pack of something that was from Booker's or you know, from a supplier, and then but I wouldn't mind so much if that's what they were selling it as, but they're selling it as something that's a lot more, you know.
I fully agree, and even at this festival, there's one that I've seen at a food festival. I'm not going to name them, but definitely that happens in terms of they're just, you know, the raw ingredients are just bought from the supermarket, and they're dressing it up that it's this, that.
Yeah,
and
my mate's got
that. Almost frustrates me that obviously I do the hard work, source things correctly.
Well, and then people would walk past your stand and think, oh, he's only doing fish and chips. But everything you've got is sustainable, good quality. And, you know, whereas my mate's got a chicken marination company, brilliant chicken, but it's made by somebody, it's made by him. Yeah. But I was at this show, and there was this chicken marinated company, and they were like, we do Argentinian chicken, we'll make it ourselves. And I saw him walking with my mate's chicken that he marinated. No. And I was like, that's fine if you say you bought it from someone, but to say that you marinated it.
Like I say, I think there's street food vendors out there and food vendors out there, I think this is just general, to be honest, that take this seriously and do it properly, and that's what I very much want myself to be in the camp of.
There's good and bad in everything.
Definitely. And then there's those few more roguers that it's almost like a hobby, something. I think the pizza, there's a customer in my shop actually that him and his mates set it up, and they had that attitude. One of them wanted to take it seriously, and this guy held his hands up and said, look, this is just a bit of a additional for me, buy it off me, you crack on. And he's now running it seriously, which fair play to him. That's the way they went.
So moving forward a little bit, you do now quite a lot of work with the NFFF, National Federation of Fish Friers, for anybody that doesn't know, and you're regional director. I always get all these titles confused, as you know. How long have you been a regional director now?
I've been an official regional director for I think 4 years.
Okay.
I think 4 years. But for a year before that, I got approached, would I like to be one, and got scared by the fact that it sounded a lot of work, it sounded very official, I was still trying to grow my business, etc., etc.
I suppose it is all of those things, though.
It is a lot of those things. Yeah, no, it is,
so,
totally.
Yeah.
But I just said no, basically, and what the board at the time, under my now future father-in-law's, which I didn't know at the time, but guidance and fair play to them, they realised that they wanted to change the face of the board. The board, no disrespect to years gone by, but has been very much made up of older fish friers, older business owners, almost retired people that can give up their time rather than key people in the industry, and also younger people. So they approached me as a young fish friers representative. Yeah. So I did that for about 18 months.
So you got eased in as sort of like
apprenticeship. And we're still now. We've got a slot free for that. So anybody that we think suitable.
Why don't Zohab do it? He does nothing all day.
You speak to him, he says he does lots. But no, Zo's actually been approached. Dan, both have wanted to concentrate. So absolute fair play on what they're doing. So what you're saying
is you need two people to take your old role.
Yes, basically, or one person, I think, definitely. So I think in years to come, I think hopefully another young fish fryer, it doesn't necessarily have to be the winner
of course not.
A young fish fry person, you know, I'm getting a bit older now, I'm probably less classed as a younger person now, 32, but, you know, I think it'd be great to have somebody else come and fill that role and not be scared by it. So basically all we want is your opinion, to sit on the board at meetings, which are 4 times a year, face to face, and a few other times over Skype, you know, and
well, no one can say they're not being represented then, can they? If there's someone young there, you know, then they're being represented, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's a really good thing, in my opinion. I think that someone needs to do that. And also you're head of training at the NFFF Training Academy.
Yeah,
is that right? Is that the role
loosely. Loosely. I've not officially been given that.
You know where I got that from? I got that from our video, and Andrew was messing around, so I don't know if it was a joke.
I think they all unofficially do say that. No, I think it's just naturally because as a board we focus on different areas and different sort of areas of expertise. And since I won Young Fish Fryer of the Year, I've been involved in training, whether that was just as a guest fryer, then as like an assistant, doing practical sessions, and then obviously more and more involved, thanks to the guidance of Mark Drummond, Arthur Parrington, Dennis Tate, Greg Howard, Andrew Crook, all these people sort of within that sector, and obviously within the federation, I got involved in that side of it, and I loved it. You know, I really do still now love passing on tips and knowledge and tricks and just trying to point people in the right direction, because no matter who you are, recently we've had people that are in the top 10 to fish and chip shop of the year, and they've come on a training course. I say massive hats off to them. They're there. They won't learn as much as obviously somebody new, but they'll learn one or two things. So,
but they might not need to do a 3-day course. They can just come for a refresher.
Yeah, exactly. A 1-day course or an in-shop, which is other things that the Federation offer. But yeah, so I suppose I ended up, I'm definitely not officially head of training, but I do focus a lot of my time and effort on training.
So, regarding training, one of the biggest things I see, like my mate, I told you about him, we were talking about the other day, he's opening a restaurant in Crewe. And he's gone and done a 4-month chef's placement. Because he's not opening Crewe, he's opening Nantwich,
nearby.
And which is nearby. And he said, still, I wouldn't dream about opening a restaurant without doing this training. He's been fish and chips all his life, but he's gone to learn how to be a chef. Why is it that doesn't apply this way around?
I have no idea.
Because
it's just because of natural. I think
like
people think, again, it's a perception of the public that fish and chips is easy. You just open a packet of fish and put it in a fryer, and that you turn everything on at 11 o'clock. They don't see the hard work behind it. And we do get people come on the course that have got that attitude. Now, obviously, by the end of it, they realise, geez, this is a lot to sort of... There's a lot of work in this, which I think is a good thing. I think definitely on the course we don't woolly it up. We say it how it is, and that's good and bad. It can be, and it is a great industry, and I love being a part of it. But yeah, your mate is so right that going off and getting that experience is essential. But it is crazy. I mean, you don't have to have a level 2 hygiene exam to open a fish and chip shop. So you could know nothing about bacteria or washing your hands and be allowed to trade. Now, I'm hoping in years to come that actually changes that.
I'm just so surprised that people that lend the money aren't insisting on this sort of qualification. I don't think if I, as myself, walked into a bank and said, I want to open a restaurant, I have no experience.
And again, I think this was something that the Federation has tried to put onto banks, but obviously it's almost a computer says no category of credit scores, not, the actual skills to run that business. It used to be that you'd have an interview with the bank manager and they'd make the decision. And I think this is the sort of thing where that might get thought through then. But now the sort of computer says no system, that's not one of the criteria. But I think that will change. And I think the other factor is not everyone does need to lend money to come into it. So,
true, there is
so
that.
People can just set this up. And it's frightening the amount, the poor standard that can be. But I think equally they'll quickly learn. So I think that they'll either close or go out of business, or they'd have to adapt and realise how important food hygiene and things like this are.
No one's suggesting that without training it's going to be a failure, but it just helps you get to success a little bit faster, hopefully. That's my opinion. I've never had formal training in what I do today, but I had training for what I do, fish and chips, before. And I think, it's just, it makes sense. I just think it just completely makes sense. If you can just jump through all those hoops, then
No, I agree. And I think, like I say, I think formally licenses and things like that will, I think, in the future, is my prediction, that you might need certain level of level 2 qualification or level 3 of food hygiene and health and safety, and I think that'd be good for the industry.
It's about like the city and guilds, essentially, isn't it? Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think that's probably going to happen at some point, especially with more outbreaks. And we've seen it. We've seen, I don't know if you remember the story. Have you ever heard of the restaurants Oaxaca?
I have heard it.
It was only a few years ago, 2 of their restaurants shut down in London because even they had a norovirus going around, and they're professionals. They've got systems in place, and so I think as our industry, we're probably at risk of that a little bit somewhere. And then again, everything we cook is being fried at 185 degrees.
That massively helps, and that's where loosely we've probably got away with it to an extent, because unfortunately, I've seen some shops where the standards aren't what they should be, and I think we're lucky that most products are cooked hot, very hot, that bacteria's killed, and we're a safer food. So,
no, of course it is. So, and also it's not just hands-on stuff that you do at the NFFF. Obviously you do, as in at the course, you do accounting and all of that stuff. It's more like classroom things, isn't it?
So the 3-day course, it's aimed more at probably new people in the industry, like you hinted at before. So people that don't know the industry, and that's made up of theory, and there's basically 2 to 3 hours of theory and 4 to 5 hours of practical each day of a 3-day course generally. And obviously theory wise, we recap a lot of the things practically, so elements of raw materials and stuff like that are important. And we want to emphasize and recap from what we've been doing practically, but also we touch on very loosely other elements like accounting, but even more so now, we're covering things like marketing and branding and stuff like that, which I think, again, the way the industry's gone and the way food sector and food industry full stop has gone, is that has to be a more important thing to do.
Well, I think social media is going to be a big driver moving forward. You know, I read an article the other day and it said that young people, I'm guessing that means millennials, won't go into a restaurant if they don't have a website.
No.
You know, and you think...
I can see it.
Yeah, like they want to know. They want to know what's on the menu. They want to know what's going on. And so I think that websites are easy to do anyway. I think you can get one for about £10 a month anyway. So there's no reason why you shouldn't. But it's good that the NFFF are actually teaching people a little bit about that.
Massively pushing that element of it, without a doubt. And
this is where the younger generation can get in and help a little bit as well.
Well, I mean, you just take yourself away. If you're popping off to somewhere and you wanted to visit a fish and chip shop, what would you do? You get your phone out, you hit Google, and away you go. And it's, I think, again, the competitive nature of food sector generally, and obviously fish and chip shops, is you're competing against so many other food choices that you've got to be visible. But by visible, I don't just mean you bump into the shop.
Yeah, I think fish and I think all takeaway food, regardless of just fish and chips, I think that their challenge at the moment is the fact that restaurant food is getting cheaper.
Yeah,
you know, so if it's a couple of quid more,
you
know, a friend of mine's got a shop in I can't remember now, I forget, but he's got a shop and across the road Wetherspoons is open, you know, and he says they can go and eat fish and chips there for the same price.
And what we've got to do, I think, as an industry is try and make the public understand the difference in quality of that. You know, that will probably have been put in an oven or maybe already battered and then just refried or whatever. And obviously the standard and the quality of the product, not knocking Wetherspoons, I don't know, but I'm assuming it's not going to be good as what we can produce.
Well, I think we just need to up our game in a social way, in a social media type of way anyway, and just show people, you know, that, you know, everyone can do a quick video now.
Yeah.
You know, like we've got iPhones, we've got Google phones, whatever. Like you can just take a quick video, you can show people how you make potatoes, and so they get the gist of it, and it's just constant selling, isn't it? You know?
Definitely.
But I do think that the problem we're going to see at the moment is that, you know, rents are going up, and more people are getting into these places, and I think fish and chips can do well. I really think there's a market there.
Me too.
But I just think there's a few things that is going to happen over the next few years that, you know, but I think training is imperative. I really do. Yeah. You know, if we can just jump through all those learning curves, it just makes so much sense. But yeah, well done to the NFFF. I think, you know, I'm not, you know me. I think a lot of people know that I'm not the first person to say they do well. Like, you know, I think I'm always honest. I try to be anyway. And I think, I don't know, they seem to be doing all right.
Yeah, I think for me, being a part of it for, say, 6 years, I've noticed a change from the previous board run by Mark and Greg, and they really started trying to push things, and now following that through to Greg and Andrew, then Andrew now with Craig, and obviously us all helping out. The differences and the emphasis we're putting on just trying to help the industry. You know, we've got a new website coming that's going to be really exciting. There's going to be members area, things like that. So we're trying to just basically give a bit more back to the members.
There is a shortage of good people.
Yeah.
As in getting involved, isn't there? Like, you know, and I think Andrew said, look, we'd love more people to just give their time and get more involved. And
definitely.
I think, you know, and for whatever reason, everyone needs to sort of, where possible, if they can apply a bit of their time to it, I think that would be great. But I think there's always, you know, there's always going to be people that don't like what the NFFF do. I don't know how either, because, you know, they do a good job overall.
Oh, that's people's opinion, and I think my only frustration from that, and I'm, you know, obviously I am biased to the federation, but I'm quite a sort of I look at, or try to look at people's points of view and try and understand why don't you like that or whatever. And I think a lot of the time it's just either that they genuinely don't put the time in to learn what goes on. Actually, if they did, or come and, you know, the federation's open to anyone they want to come and look round or things like that, they would understand the hard work. You know, a lot of people think that we get paid to be directors. We don't. So this morning, before you've arrived, Stellis, I've done 7 emails this morning. I've not got a penny for that. You know, and I'm not saying that I should, but what I'm trying to say is that's, to a lot of people, be classed as work.
Well, I think anybody who's giving their time should get paid for their time. That's my opinion. Yeah. You know, I've always said that. But, you know, I think I do think open days would be a good idea.
Yep.
You know, but it's whether people are willing to travel to Leeds and have an open day. Or
I think the potential idea we're looking at actually is moving a little open day around. So having 3 or 4 a year where you can come meet people and stuff. And I think it's almost going back to the days of where they used to have area meetings.
Yeah.
I think because that's fell by the wayside, there's only really the North West and Wales that still meet up regularly. And I think, and again, the numbers of those are smaller, 10 people, 15 people, versus I think it used to be quite a lot of people attending to meetings. But that's just the nature of us busy. And I think that's where, just everybody's lives being on the phone and at limited time and stuff just naturally goes that way. But I think
people have families as well. If they're working Monday to Saturday, the last thing they want to do is go to a meeting on a Sunday.
I agree.
That makes complete sense. I get that, but I think at the same time, no one should have a problem with not going either. You know, so I think that I think the NFFF is doing a grand job considering how fast we're moving today. They're not just our industry, all the food industry. So I think that there's a lot of conversation about the NFFF on Facebook. Not always positive for the NFFF, but at least someone's there dealing with it. Mostly always Andrew, but he's there. He's
too often.
And he's trying to deal with it. And I think sometimes you just got to let people call you and have a one-to-one. I think
definitely. I think from my point of view, the people that don't like the federation, if you've got a reason to, fair enough. But I don't think many of them have, and that's the bit frustrates me. Is look, just have a chat with us. Just understand a little bit what we do, and then fine, if you don't want to be a part of it, you don't. But it's frustrating because we're trying to do the good of the industry, i.e. fish and chips.
How much is it to be a member?
I think it's about £173.
How is it? I thought it was 200 something, but it's not.
Plus VAT. So,
okay.
So 200, just over £200. So basically, less than the price you'd sell a fish for a week.
So, 10,000 shops, I've just done a quick calculation. That's 1.8 million. After that, obviously. I'll pass that on. So what would could the NFFF do with something like that?
So much. I mean, again, it's frustrating. What we do is fight fires a lot of the time. So we will, for example, recently we've had issues with salts, plastics, calories, all these elements. We've got to put research in to be able to go back to the government. We can't just go back to the government and say, you're wrong there.
No,
because we're the federation.
You need to back it
They're
up.
not going to go, oh, okay, no, that's fine. They have to have the research. This all costs money and people's time and effort to put that in. Whereas with that money, we could educate the government, so we could probably get a bit more help and a bit more support from
you can at least lobby them a little bit.
Exactly, that way. But also we'd have a bigger budget to market brand fish and chips, come up with good ideas, like we do, and support the National Fish and Chip Day. That's great and it's growing, but we could have that on a more regular basis, national campaigns.
You sort of hit the nail on the head earlier a little bit where you said we're fighting fires. The difference, if you had that sort of budget, is that you wouldn't have to fight fires. You could set aside time to plan for it. Rather than dealing with it rushing a few days before or something. You could actually say, well, this is going to be a problem next year. We know it's going to be a problem. Let's build our story. But also if you could get, more shops that give their time, more shop owners that give their time to the NFFF as well. I think because you could always do with great people, and there's a lot of really interesting people out there.
There's so many interesting people in fish and chip sector. We're an industry made up of lots of small businesses, and small business owners tend to be characters, tend to have good ideas, tend to, I
genuinely believe that some of the people that dislike the NFFF would actually do such a great job being part of it as well. Like, you see them, they're intelligent, and they've got the right formed argument in some ways about other things, but they'd be better on the side of the NFFF. Again, that's my opinion, and I do say this to people, but I think in our industry, I think some people, if we all fall in, we were talking about it earlier, how everyone falls into camps, and I think that should stop a little bit. I think we should just be, I'm Stelios, you're Craig, and you're such and such, and it doesn't have to be.
I think what they need to realise is it is to an extent a competition within ourselves, but actually we've got bigger issues as fish and chips as an industry. Against energy prices, against the amount of food options available to customers, against trying to pitch ourselves. It really frustrates me the price we sell fish and chips for. You go into a curry, an Indian or a Chinese, rice plus the dish is £8, £9.
Yeah, those places have managed to get the £10 share, haven't they?
All we'd need is £1 or two more, and the industry would be so much healthier. Obviously, we can't monopolise that.
I actually don't think that. At the moment, everyone knows there's high fish prices, high potato prices. I don't think they're going to creep back down that much over the time. With everything happening with Brexit at the moment, I just can't see potatoes going back down. I can't see, not to the way they used to be. You could argue for the last 10, 15 years, they've been far too cheap. I think someone said to me, potatoes 15 years ago were £3 something. And
Crazy.
now they're like, and then
would
just
love
before
that,
they
but
went
yeah.
up again, there were 7. That wasn't a massive difference in all those years. So I think that we're going to have to get used to this.
I do, and I also think the farmers and stuff need to work with us to an extent. Obviously, they can't do anything about weather, but there's certain things like the amount they plant and things like that that we could make it more sustainable, a bit like fishing has, So I can't see fish coming down. I agree with you on commodities. I don't think they're going to come down drastically. I think they'll hopefully come down a little bit, especially potatoes at the moment because they are extremely high. But I think we have to plan as that it's going to be more expensive, and the way to do that is concentrate on getting an efficient portion size that's sensible, and then also make sure we charge the right amount.
I think one of the biggest things I'm seeing is that people are going to have to start looking at their business model, and if they ain't got one, they need one, and they need to be looking at GPs. I really do think so. I think there was a post on Facebook last night, and the chat was like, and I feel for the guy. He's clearly needing some help, and he just says something like, what's everyone's cost like at the end of the week? And I just think you just need to be looking at your gross profit. That'll help you out massively.
Definitely.
And but everyone throws in on Facebook, and they're like, oh well, you need to put your prices up. And I'm like, you don't even know what his costs are. He didn't tell us what his costs were. But if he came and said my GP's at 49%, for argument's sake, someone could have said, well, actually, mate, you need to be X. But I think if people start looking at that and get some good software and getting it all figured out for them, or even just look at a template, there's lots of things you can do to help with that. But I think when I see a lot of the restaurants that I deal with outside the food industry, they know their GPs through and through. They know everything. They know plate costs. They know everything. So I think that's probably where we're lacking a little bit in our industry.
Oh, definitely. And I think I personally think that we will lose a percentage of shops this next sort of 12 to 18 months, partly due to the commodity price, but more down to the fact that they don't know these sort of basic business elements and that they're not charging the correct amount, or they're worried about charging that amount. I mean, I've put my price up recently, and a customer said to me, it's gone up, you're the most expensive. I said, yeah, but I'm still going to be around in a year. The shops that you can compare it to, that they might not be, and ultimately it is work, it's business, and we are in it to make a profit. Now, yes, people don't want you to be greedy, and I think there's that element to it, but that I don't think there's anything to be embarrassed about, that you're in business to make money, and I think it's not focused on enough. But yeah, I think we've got to watch the commodity price, but we've got to, I personally do think we need to charge more. I think fish and chips is too cheap. McDonald's, I think their average spend is £6. Why shouldn't we? And that's,
I think in some ways, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I think some of the problem is the fact that we, as an industry, the portions have got bigger, and I think that's probably one thing that's probably got to be corrected at the same time. And I think that's the difficulty, is that it's actually a double increase if you're putting the price up and reducing the portion.
Of course.
So I think you should only tackle one at a time. I say to a lot of people that I see, if they're giving out a big piece of fish, well, maybe you should trim the end off, do fish cakes, build some value out of that. Obviously that works in my favour to that, clearly, I know that. But what I'm getting at more so is that that's where the profit is made. Mark Patru was really intelligent about when he says where he makes his profit, and he says, when I'm closed, I make all my profit there in preparation. You look at restaurants, they're making all their profit when they're closed in preparation. Whereas with fish and chips, we probably rely on everything to be delivered, essentially. And I think over the years, chip dimensions have got thicker and thicker, and I think we end up giving more chips away as well, because visually, when you go for a thicker chip, you don't actually, they don't look a lot. Whereas
almost
you look at,
people count the chips rather than
exactly.
the actual mass of them.
And I think this is the common misconception with consumers. They go to McDonald's and they get a whole box of fries, but it looks like a lot, because physically you have to dip in a lot, because you get a lot of fries in terms of per one, but in weight there's not a lot at all. We all know that.
No, I agree. I think it's just like any successful business, you've got to evolve, and I think fish and chips is at a tipping point where we need to really up the ante of evolving and match up with the changing world out there. And
it's moving fast. It is really moving fast. And I think that sort of brings us to sort of like, what is happening today in the trade. And we've got rents and rates going up. We've got potatoes that are high, fish that's gone up, crazy. We've seen wheat increases on our side, and that's obviously coming through to everyone. So I think these are all risks to the industry. It's massive. Like I think that, but I think it's helping people get over the line. And I think now's a perfect time to be a member of the NFFF, because I think there's a team there that are trying to help people do that. I really do think so. But
good.
So one question I had, because you're a Hopkins customer, is they seem to have a tricky time lately, but they're back on the cards. And
so a few years ago, again, when I did my shop, I chose Hopkins. I felt it was the best range that suited my budget and what I required at the time. I think they've been established 60 plus years, I think, and it's such a shame to see a company like that go officially into administration. But I think it also highlights the state of the industry and the world we live in now, and that it was a shame, but in a good way that they've reformed, and I think their focus, what I'm led to believe, is just going to be a lot more condensed and specialised. And again, this led us what we were talking about focusing on fish and chip shops. I think the shops that sell a bit of everything don't focus on stuff, and therefore you almost become a jack of all trades and a master of none. And that's, I'm not saying Hopkins are exactly like that, but they did sell lots of equipment and they were competing against some big boys, and that takes you away from what they should be worrying about, which is the frying ranges. So it's good to see them back going, and I hope that this is sort of, again, Preston Thomas a few years ago, similar thing. So I hope that they continue to prosper now, and it hopefully gets them to refocus on what their customers need and want, and the angle they might go at.
So what technology would you like to see in our industry?
Technology, I'm, again, younger person. I'm quite a techie person anyway. I like technology. I like my gadgets just generally. And I really started to embrace certain things. So we've got the digital Safer Food, Better Business books.
Okay.
So, or food safety management systems. So, for example, Check It, Navitas, they're two quite popular ones. I think something like that should be embraced. I mean, the Check It system, for example, this is not a plug, by the way, but just experience of using it. It alerts staff that jobs are required, so therefore they're not going to miss that job being done. Therefore, when they do probe the peas, for argument's sake, if they've gone colder or they're not hot enough when they put them in, that you're also then not going to serve an inferior product. So it really does help you out day to day. It reduces paperwork, it reduces all of those elements to it. But they're very easy to use, very user friendly. And I think, again, for staff training, which is a big issue in the industry, I think the levels of staff and the staff is a big problem, as I well know, and the industry knows, is getting skilled people, and this will help skilled people. So if technology is there to embrace it,
do you think
jump on it?
Do you think that EHOs are going to be enforcing this sort of equipment in the future? Do you think?
Maybe, yeah. This is definitely a good shout. I mean, I don't at the moment see a negative to it. You can't manipulate it, which you can a paper system.
Yeah.
It's real-time information, which again is a good thing. As a shop owner, you can put structure in place again through using technology. I know there's another bit of software called Rota Cloud, and it works out, people's rotas, and they submit
all
stuff.
The staff.
Yeah,
it knows when they're in.
Yeah, and it's better for the customer, i.e. the member of staff. So there's technology throughout the industry that we should embrace. And you said about it before, social media and videos. It's much more interesting watching a video about something than looking at a picture or reading about a text. And that's, again, the way of the world these days, as we know. But technology should be embraced. Fridge and freezer monitors. If you've got £2,000 worth of frozen at sea fish in a freezer and it goes down on a Saturday and you don't open again till Monday afternoon, which some shops don't, you could come into £2,000 worth of fish defrosted by that point.
Yeah.
That's not ideal. Whereas if you've got a system that alerts you, you save money.
It's interesting because I was reading The Caterer the other day, which is, I love the magazine.
Yeah.
And they were doing a Q&A with a chef, and they said, what's the one thing you'll never do? And he goes, I'll never buy a used fridge. He goes, because I keep all my stock in there, and it's the one thing that's on 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
He goes, my cookers, everything goes off for a rest. He goes, but the fridges never go off, freezers never go off. And it's so true. Like, we don't see that. Like, and I think, but what you're talking about is the systems that essentially alert you before or at failure, rather than coming in 12 hours later and thinking, oh, what happened there?
I mean, basically, technology, obviously it will alienate some people. So for example, from a customer side, I've seen more and more shops taking orders as people come in with an iPad or something like that. I think that's great because you're getting a double whammy of customer service. You've got less waiting time. So again, embrace it. And even if there's somebody taking that order but using technology, i.e. a waitress or whoever taking the order off someone, it doesn't matter their age because there's a person communicating it. I think where we're at the level of is, for example, the McDonald's and the totem pole type tap touchscreen ordering. I don't see why that can't be used in fish and chip shops. And if
I think things like that have just got. I know a lot of people would be screaming at you right now for saying that. However, everything has its place.
Exactly.
Would I want that in a nicer restaurant where I'm now splashing out a little bit? Probably not.
No.
But if I'm working, which is when I mostly go to McDonald's, I would like to just go and order a coffee or whatever.
It's the convenience of it, and actually, now I think the stat that come out the other day on that Secret Life of 4-year-olds, but there was something like 65% of 4-year-olds have their own tablet. So if we're trying to encourage the newer generation, that will be normal speak to them. So there is an argument for it. But no, I totally get it, and it's a time and a place for technology. I think some businesses, for the sake of using technology, will use it. And I don't think it's appropriate, but I think we should keep monitoring these new innovations and embrace them if they help out the shop and our sector. I think it's got to be done.
I completely think so, and I think a lot of people see that as a way of getting rid of staff. Whereas I think if you look at, and maybe there's some of that is true. But I was on.
I think in a big organisation that would eliminate some staff, but I think
they get removed to something else. I think because McDonald's now, they focus a lot on table service. Well, those staff that would be on the counter taking the order are now running the order out. So I think on Twitter, I didn't really tweet it or anything, but I follow a local McDonald's organisation, and they've just knocked down one store and rebuilt another one, and they're saying it's going to have all of those machines. But they're going to employ 70 more staff.
Wow.
So that tells you, they're making way, know, to this. It's always the efficiencies, isn't it? And, and actually, the thing is now, if it's a mistake, it's generally the customer's fault because they tilled in their own food, didn't they? So I think that this, we could all argue that there's a benefit there sometimes, isn't there? But so moving away from technology a little bit, unless there's something else you wanted to mention.
No, I think that was
Because I think to some degree with that, just to go back slightly, I think maybe Hopkins' mistake somewhere a little bit was the fact that they didn't embrace technology a little bit, to some degree.
Personally, I think so a little bit. I mean, I don't know if that attitude's changed now, but little things like the controls, the other particularly Dutch manufacturers have moved on. Filtration is something that apparently Hopkins would never. Maybe they revisit that. I don't know. Maybe this exercise is make them look at it. I personally know that when I work on a Dutch range with a built-in filtration system, I absolutely love it as a fryer. So. And I'm a fryer, so maybe they need to listen to that. I don't know. I don't know their business, but
I sort of agree with that. They've got to listen to the users. That's a fact.
I get the other side of it. It's more parts. It's more things to go wrong. It's another bit to design and but I think you have to move the times. Well, no matter what that business, and if the times are that filtration is very important, which there is no doubt it is. If you can make that easier for the end user and people are prepared to pay for it, why would you not do it?
I'm with you there. No, definitely, completely with that. Well, I'm interested to see how I think Matthew's on. Well, not Victoria wasn't doing a great job because she was, but Matthew's now at the helm, and it'd be interesting to see how he does.
No, definitely. I mean, just on Victoria, I've nothing but good things to say every time I've dealt with her, and I wish them all the success. Like you say, Matthew I've known for a long time as well, and
a lot of people and Victoria may see it as a failure, but she had a lot to deal with,
definitely,
and it's not easy running a small business, let alone a large business, and so I take my hat off to her every day.
Me too.
And so moving forward, I've got a question here because I read an article about it the other day, and it says, I will enter the Fish and Chips for the Year award at some point.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, well, he hasn't yet. So when are you?
So I've entered, as you know, the Seafish Fish and Chip Awards.
Yeah.
So this year, for example, the van is in the finals for the mobile, which we're really excited about. But I've never, I've won Field to Fryer, won Young Fish Fryer of the Year, and I almost see it a little bit. I almost see it as almost a bit of an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Same sort of attitude as they have for everything. I've been fortunate enough to judge Fish and Chip Shop of the Year twice now, and I mean the top 10 competition. And when I went into that, I was hoping, which actually came true, is that I thought I wasn't a million miles off this, which would otherwise I would be dash my own hopes a little bit, but also that I was wowed and am so impressed by shops, which again did happen. So there was, I think, 3 or 4 businesses within each of those years I looked at and thought, wow, these are unbelievable. Not just the quality of the fish and chips, but the operation, the business that they're doing, the way that they're moving, and I was just impressed, which is great. And that's what I wanted to feel. And I think when I look at my current shop, I think this is again what people don't see, is that because I put a bit of time into the federation or other things in the industry, it means you don't put as much into your own. Now, I'm happy with my business, but if I had all the time that I'd focus on everything, would it be better? Well, no doubt. Like anybody, focus on more things. So I think there's still a few things in my shop that I would want to achieve. Some might say tick boxes. So, for example, we've not quite got the MSc certification yet. That's something I want to try and achieve. And just generally little things. And I think you've got to stand out, which I suppose like the potato room, it does. But I just think I'm not quite there. I think we're sort of 95% of the way there. And there's still that level that I need to go up. And, that's what I constantly assess. But am I a big advocate of the awards? Absolutely, massively. I think anybody, you have nothing to lose entering, and really I'm saying this and thinking, why have I not entered? Because I've got nothing to lose. I'd get some feedback. All right, we might not win,
as well,
exactly. So I think, to be honest, next year or the year after, I think I'm getting near to the point where I think I should go for it and see how we get on. And that's
in your short time of being in the industry, because it is a short time, you started in 2009, you've clearly learnt a lot. What's the one thing you wish you knew then that you do know now?
One thing's very difficult, if I'm honest. I think the few things, if I can, are staff, and in terms of how I manage and how I am. I think I was very much more of aggressive, shouty sort of character towards generally everything, but staff definitely to start with, and I think that's not the way to achieve. I think training I didn't put enough emphasis on, and now again we do put a lot more on that. So that's and it shows, staff retention. I used to be really, one staff would leave every couple of months. Now I've had the same team, other than adding to it, for over 2 years, every single member. So if that should speak for itself really in this industry. But I think those things, I think marketing and the sort of professionalism, I think realising that, I think those are the main points I think that I'd sort of focus on. I think, like I say, you're not in a big-headed way, but I think I wasn't a million miles off the mark to start with. I just think I didn't know the all the little things. I think that's what it was. I think I thought it was you use a certain batter or you fry in a certain range, you will have a good shop. And I don't think it's that. I think it's you've got to understand that it's every little element is right. And I think it's about, I think the word consistency. I do see lots of shops where sometimes I've gone and it's been amazing and other times it's been a bit naff. And I think the best shops are just good all the time. And I think
the word consistency is something that I come across a lot. And I don't think it's sexy.
Nope.
But it means everything. Yeah. And I think, we all talk about quality, we all talk about passion, and, but no one really talks about consistency.
No.
And I think that, for me and any other restaurateur that I've met, that's the word they rely on the most.
Definitely.
And everything they do every day is to get to that level. A guy that I know that's got a chain of restaurants and fish and chip shops, he says that in his early days he wanted everyone to work at 100% of the time. But then once he lowered it to 80%, he goes, that was it. He'd solved all his problems.
I think you sometimes can ask too much, and because we're so passionate and about what we do, and it is our names above the doors effectively, that you have got to realise that it's just a job for some people, and it's about trying to make them see actually you want to be a bit better than that, and almost that they don't have that dreaded fear in the morning, I've got to go to work. And I don't think generally my staff do, or most of the time.
Well, let's hope not.
I do hope not. And if they do, I generally say it to, if new people come along, I was like, look, if you don't enjoy this or you don't think this is for you, I've got no problems with that. I don't want to employ people that don't want to be here.
No, there's no point.
There's absolutely no point. So that's something.
And what should every shop owner listening to this do? At least, a little thing, big thing. What do you think they should really focus on?
Stand back from the business, because I think that's something that the awards and maturity have made me do, is that look at this business from your customer's point of view. there's so much to do, just day-to-day tasks for fish and chip shops. It's very easy to turn up and start plodding through those tasks, and you never stand back and think, how does this shop look to a customer? How does my marketing look? So I think stand back is one of the things, or my main thing I would say to do, and then just focus on the details. Don't shortcut. Too many people try and shortcut things. There is a way to do things for a reason, and if you follow that, it doesn't have to be too hard. For example, preparing potatoes. So many people try and shortcut that process with dry white and things like that. If you just follow what it says in the tin, it works.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So, well, I think one of the biggest misconceptions of dry white is that the chips should be kept in water.
Yeah.
And I remember Martin said to me from Dry White, it's called dry white for a reason. That makes complete sense. Yeah. But there's a lot of people that, in Scotland, they keep all their potatoes in water. So it's very, very different.
Yeah.
But so who, maybe, all right, let's think of this question. Who has inspired you or who impresses you the most in this industry?
In this industry, there's a few people really. I think one of my first sort of major role model, I suppose, was Callum Richardson, who's now become a really good friend. And all right, it's usually him just taking the mic, but that's Callum. No, I think without a doubt, it's the sort of usual suspects that I've been fortunate to meet. Obviously, Greg, Howard, my now to be father-in-law, but at that time didn't know that. But he was president at the time, so that was someone that impressed me. Andrew impresses me. Yourself, I think. Callum, Richard Ord Senior. To be honest, there's so many. I think Mark. I think it's a bit unfair to. I think I'm lucky that I've got a sort of a network of 10 to 15, 20 really good, I'd say, friends and people that I look up to and respect. For example, Fred. I'll speak to Fred. And I'm not speaking to him every day or anything like that, but when I do, I always think, God,
you walk away,
and
you walk
I
away
think
with something.
I'm lucky to have that, and I think I've earned that by what I put in, as in I've invested in this industry, and now I'm thankful that a few people are willing to give me a bit back. And
it makes complete sense. And also, I think that's a really important thing. We're all so quick to just jump on Facebook for a quick answer. Whereas what you've just said is that actually what you much prefer, I'm guessing, is that you got that more of a long-term help.
Definitely.
It might be more casual,
but
there's someone that you can just text or tweet or whatever.
Without a doubt.
Got time later.
And this does bring up the Facebook group element, and I do think it's dangerous. I don't post on there. I don't go on there. I think there's too many people on there whereby they think they know because they've run a shop for a long time. Fine, you've run your shop well, but have you been and looked at all the different types of shops about the industry? There's so much to learn. I think some people are just too much set in their ways, and I think it's good to get any experience and opinion, but just take them with a pinch of salt is what I'd say. And that really it was when I started looking into the sciences of stuff or how things work and actually putting that into practice and seeing, that makes sense, whatever.
I think it's worth noting that opinions are just that.
Yeah.
They're opinions. And, you should reach out and get as many of those and then try and figure out which is the best one, which works for your business. I think that's what I'd say.
Yeah. Which is why I always ignore your style, but I'm joking.
So, was there anybody else outside the industry? Because you said there was...
Yeah, I think someone that might sound a bit cliche, but someone that I definitely have always looked up to is Sir Alex Ferguson. Now, why I think that is because he always evolves with the times. So he's an older guy, but embraced, from what I understand, every new bit of technology that came into the football industry. He's managed to rebuild the team several times, which we have to do within fish and chip shops. I think there's been no ever time where a player's been bigger than the club, which I think is also important.
That was important for him, yeah.
But it's more management and stuff that I've, again, over the last few years, realised everybody is different. Some people need an arm around them, some people need telling off, some people need a kick up the bum, and I think you've got to work that out within your business and industry. But yeah, that's someone else that I've looked up to. Obviously, he's always been successful.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And
he hasn't always been successful.
No, not always, sorry. But has always strived for success.
Yeah.
I've read and seen a few documentaries and stories about when he was a player and he was just as hungry, just as aggressive then, and he made no apologies for that. And I think that's, again... Not saying I see myself in Sir Alex Ferguson, but I see that trait in me where I don't make any apologies to anybody that I'm trying to do well. It might come across as a bit arrogant, but it's not. It's why should I not be successful?
I'm not into football at all, really.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying about him because I've read this about him, that he's very business minded as well.
Yeah.
I was watching a film recently called Moneyball. I don't know if you've watched it. It's got Brad Pitt in it, and it's based on a book about how two guys that are like let's say it was a Premier League baseball team, let's say.
Yeah.
But it was a crap one, at the bottom.
Yeah.
And they had 30 million a year. That's all they had. Every other team had like 90, 100 million.
Yeah.
And they used data and analytics to figure out who the best players were.
Right.
And it was then why I know about Alex Ferguson about this, because he was one of the first guys to talk to those two. When he figured out how they did what they did, he brought that back to the UK. Yeah. And it just, again, he evolved.
Exactly that. And that's why, as well, other people in the sort of who I look up to, it's almost my peers. So as well, that younger people. Yeah. So Dan, Zoe, Lee, Carlin, all the little team are sort of us younger Friers, etc. in it. And then the ones coming through now, I think, you're pushing for this, and that's great.
As corny as it sounds, because it's corny, you are the future. That is the point. I know that sounds...
No, I understand.
And I think, the dry white competition is emphasising that, and I
massively,
think,
And obviously, with winning it, and especially with what's happened to Briar recently and things like that, and I see it as something that I'm always going to champion, whether I'd won it or not. I would have that opinion because it helped me grow as a person and a business, and there's no negatives to it. There's a few downs if you don't get through or something like that, but
no one wants to enter something and not win.
No, exactly.
But it is what you make it. So if you walk away from it, and you don't win, then you just pick yourself up in anything.
Totally.
So what does the future hold for you? A few minutes left.
I think keep doing what we're doing, keep evolving, keep embracing new things. I definitely think a new shop, without a doubt. I'm looking at a few at the moment and things on the horizon, and those are now focused on maybe a different area than what I'm operating in now. So I've sort of learned about clientele and where I want to be at, and I've sort of understood who I am and what I'm trying to achieve. Be successful.
So you're sort of setting yourself new personal targets for business, that is.
For business. Obviously, personally, I'm getting married. I've just, my little girl turns 1 in 6 days' time, and she's been amazing. And equally, having a fiance and a little child, it makes you reevaluate things as well, which has been a brilliant thing for me. But I think just keep going where I'm going, to be honest. Brilliant. Like doing what I'm doing. I think keep trying to support the industry. I'll be involved in the federation as long as people either want me to be or that I feel I can add something to it. And I've got time too, because if I end up doing it a bit thin, then I think that's an injustice to the role. So I'll probably step aside. But generally, I'm fortunate. I love what I do. I love meeting people. Dead excited when we're doing awards or trade shows or going. It's a second sort of set of mates and friends, and and I make new mates and friends as well, which is good. Whether it's training, you meet someone. There's a couple of lads from Wales that I thought, what top lads, they're brilliant, and when I see them now or I speak to them, it's so I'll keep doing that, I think.
And you may not have one, but do you have a book recommendation?
No, to be honest. Again, I heard, I think it's for Mercury, say he's not much of a reader. Neither am I. I haven't got time, to be honest. I think I'm more, again, this probably shows where I'm at. I watch a lot of YouTube. So if I do get a few minutes, there's a few people that I subscribe to on there. There's a couple of like life coach or lifestyle people.
Brilliant.
So John Olsen's one. All right, he's a very lavish, sort of not very realistic lifestyle he leads, but it's aspirational.
It's his life.
It's his life, and to be fair, his attitude is fantastic. So I embrace things like that. To be honest, I'm always watching videos to learn how to do stuff on YouTube. So a lot of it's just boring educational videos, but I actually enjoy doing that.
Brilliant.
And then the podcast stuff. This has even got me into it. So whether it's something a bit more funny like the Peter Crouch one I've been listening to, it's hilarious. To more serious ones, and obviously I'm enjoying this one. But I think I'm probably less as I did used to read. I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which was quite an interesting book growing
up. Is that Robert Kiyosaki?
Yes, that's right. So it gets you looking at different people's perspectives on the same thing.
So it's an interesting book, because I thought that book was all about get rich quick, but it's actually not. No, it's about it's saving and investing, isn't it?
Yes.
His dad didn't save.
Well, basically, the general gist is invest in something that's going to reward you. So more than likely financially, but it can be in other ways.
Yeah.
But don't invest in something that's not going to reward you. So if, for example, leasing a car, you're going to give it back, that's probably not a good investment. Whereas if you bought something like a fish and chip van that would then earn you money, that was a good investment. So it's that sort of thing. Yeah. And I probably do practice a bit of that, or try to. But yeah, no, I think...
Well, at least if you can initialise that thought process when you're about to do something more than anything, isn't it? Yeah.
No, definitely.
No, it's great. Well, Craig, I'd like to say thank you for your time.
Likewise, thank you for inviting me on. It's a very honoured list of people that you've interviewed so far. So, yeah, I hope everyone's enjoyed it.
I've always wanted to sort of like interview you because we're not best friends or anything, but we're friendly, let's say. And I always find you really honest, and I think that more than anything, I think that's the type of people that I want to be interviewing.
Fair enough. Likewise. But no, I've enjoyed it, and I hope people have. And if anyone wants to, get in touch or ask me anything, then feel free to do so. I'll be as honest with them.
We'll put your social links or whatever.
Oh, you don't need to. No.
They'll follow you on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah. To be honest, that's a funny one. Twitter, just to finish it up, I really have sort of gone off Twitter. I just think it's not being used that well. I don't know. I've really grown into Instagram, and obviously Facebook.
Instagram's great because it's visual. Obviously, Twitter, I love it purely because of the banter. Really, I don't think it's dead and buried. I think I think it's re-evolving.
But I think from a business point of view, I don't think there's as many customers interacting.
You're probably right.
I think from a business, I find much more responsive if I post on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, and you're probably better off focusing on one area anyway. And I say one because Instagram's part of Facebook. So, if you're trying to, you're only one person, how can you be on 5 platforms? You can't. That's the truth. So you're probably better off to some degree being where you enjoy it as well.
Yeah. No, definitely.
But I do enjoy looking at hashtags on Twitter when everything's kicking off. That is the best. So, but mate, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll talk again soon. Hope you all enjoyed episode 6 with Craig Buckley. Be sure to share the podcast wherever you can, and don't forget to subscribe for regular updates. Thank you.